runs. This 4,000 stall converter, it's a, I don't know what you call it, small converter. It's got a different bolt pattern than the 4L80 flex plate, so I had to slot the holes to get this to line up. Slotted them quite a bit with a die grinder and a little carbide cutter to put on there. But let's see. Now I bought this 4L80 plate because you need this for one, a 4L80, and also the Turbo 400, Turbo 350, Power Glide, I'm pretty sure also. And you have to remember to get this little spacer. I think it's 400 thousandths thick, but that's what you need to bolt this to the back of the 5.3s, 4.8s, and whatever, to put a Turbo 400 behind them, or a 4L80. You know, these, you can pick these flex plates, the spacers, and the bolts up for like 50 bucks on eBay used. They're on there all day long. So I thought I'd walk around this engine just a minute to show you a few things that are kind of important when doing an LS swap into an older car. It doesn't matter what kind of car it is, you got to have a few things that are necessities. The motor mounts is a big one. These are UMI Performance solid motor mounts for a small block Chevy. I've not put this in the car yet, so I don't even know if they're going to work, but I don't see why they wouldn't. The adapter is an LSX Innovations motor mount adapter plate, just so you can use small block Chevy motor mounts, the older small block Chevy motor mounts on this newer engine. One of the important things is you want your, it'd be a lot easier to show you if this was off, but this bolt and this hole need to be an inch apart, roughly. So whenever you buy motor mounts, a lot of them will say 1 inch forward offset, and that's what you need. That is what you want to get this engine lined up so the transmission can stay where it needs to be at from the factory, so it lines up with the factory transmission mount. Let's see, what else? The oil pan. I'm using an LS1 oil pan and pickup tube. Also using the truck windage tray. Now, if you try to put the truck windage tray on and then put the pan and pickup tube on, it won't fit. So I cut the windage tray off at the first set of holes, main cap holes, which is back here. I cut that tray off right there and was able to bolt it on, and the pickup tube works. So I'm still using a windage tray. It works just fine with this LS1 pan. Now, the reason I'm using the LS1 pan was because, for one, I'm cheap, and I got this pan cheap. But then I did that for ground clearance, obviously. But the sump is really long, so as you can see, I notched the K-member a lot, and that was to make sure that I can get any engine in and out of this thing without any problems. Now, on both sides of this oil pan, I welded in, obviously I didn't weld very well because you can see I got silicone around it, but I welded in bungs for oil drains. Those are dash 10 AN fittings. Now back here, I tapped this, what was this for? The oil cooler bypass. I tapped the fitting, or the hole here. There's not a hole here, but you can drill it out and tap it with an 1/8 inch pipe thread fitting. So you can put a dash 4 AN fitting for a turbo oil feed line. Okay. What are some of the other things I did? So how do you hold this Lambo killer anyways? Well, This is just a regular carburetor lift plate, and I had to file out a couple of the holes just a little bit to get it to bolt in place of the knock sensor cover, or the valley cover for the engine, and then I've just lifted it off the top hole. This particular engine has the LS7 camshaft in it. I'm still using 1.7 rockers, or whatever the, yeah, 1.7s. They're factory rockers on this engine, I believe. 1.7 ratio, but the LS7 used a 1.8 ratio rocker. So I haven't even looked to see what the lift or anything is on this thing, but I'm using LS3 springs, LS7 cam. Now the cam does not have the reluctor on the back of it for the cam sensor. Cam sensor being back here. I've got that cam sensor in there just to plug the hole, even though it's pointless. I could take that out, put something else in its place if I wanted to, but I already have the sensor, so it's a good plug. It ain't weighing nothing. Now, as far as the front goes, you have to use the cam sprocket from an LS2, like a 06 GTO LS2 engine. It uses a, I don't want to call it a reluctor, but it kind of is, I guess. I don't know. It has the right casting on it to run the front cam sensor. So to get your harness to plug into this, your factory wiring, if you take the loom off a little bit, you can get that harness, those factory wires, to reach up here. You can do it, I know, because I've done it. But if you don't really want to mess with your harness or try to stretch the wiring out or mess up the wire loom for any reason, you just you can buy the extension harnesses. It's just a 3-wire extension. It's, I don't know what it'd be, 2 feet long or whatever, to plug into your harness in the back and then just run it up front past the intake up here to the front cam. Now there's another piece to this that I've taken off, but it reaches from here to here. It's just an extension for that harness. I think it's just to get it away from the water pump, maybe, I'm not sure, or the accessories, because this is a LS2 front cover and you have some front accessories right in here, I think, so it gets that harness away from that. Now, a very important thing you have to remember, though, when you switch to a front cam, and I don't know why this is, there's people out there a lot smarter than me that got this figured out, but the outside pins on your harness, not the sensor, the sensor is not going to change, but on the harness you have to swap the 2 outside wires, or else the thing won't start. Or maybe it will, it'll run rough, I can't remember. I ran into that problem before and somehow got it figured out online. People already had this issue before. There's a million other people that have done this before me, so that worked out. But that allows the front cam sprocket to be used. As far as I know, I don't remember what I paid for this whole setup. Maybe 60 bucks, but I don't know if that's still right today or not. I may have just got a good deal on it. I don't know. As of right now, that's the only things I can think of. But as I go along, I'll try to point you in the right direction. So here's my first problem. I've got my motor mounts lined up where they're supposed to be at, I think. Look at this gap. So obviously my motor mounts are not where they're supposed to be at. My next problem, my engine hoist is not long enough to get the car to get the engine where it needs to be in the car. So I set the engine down. I've taken out this last bolt. I'm going to scoot this thing forward just enough, like 3 inches, if I've got 3 inches there, I'm not sure, to get this thing to go together. I don't recommend doing this, I'm just telling you what I'm doing. Alright, it's in. Let me Tell you what I did on this motor mount deal. I don't know what I was thinking, telling you earlier that this bolt needed to be an inch forward from this hole. Obviously I was way wrong, but that's what the good thing about these adapters are. You can put them wherever you need them. Mine, for whatever reason, this time went all the way to the furthest forward. Obviously that's where it needed to be. I probably had them there before and just forgot. Maybe it was an inch back from the hole in the block. I don't know, it don't matter. This isn't hard, people, just make it work. Let's get the rest of the bell housing bolts in, which brings up another issue. The bell housing bolts, if this is your first time, if you haven't already read about it, the bell housing bolts, you'll only have 5 of them. There's a casting in the block for another hole, but it goes into a water jacket, so obviously you don't want to drill and tap that hole. Just use 5 bell housing bolts. Simple as that. And for those of you that say that won't work, well, look how many millions of other people are already doing it every day and don't have a problem. So just go with it. Now that bell housing bolt that won't be going in will be this top right one up on this side, the one that holds your dipstick tube on. Yeah, that's the one. And of course you can't see it, but anyways, it's there. That one won't work. Look at this hammer. Just goes to show you don't have to have nice tools to do this job. You just have to make it work. Alright, so here's my next problem. I want to do a forward exhaust manifold and put a turbo in the front, right in this area. And a few years ago I made up this manifold here where I welded a 2.5 inch V-band to it. At the same time, this side I made this manifold. For some reason I don't really remember doing this, but I welded this pipe up and then I took the power steering pump off. Well, now I'm putting the pump back on and this tube doesn't clear. So my idea is to cut this off and put an elbow on it and just bring the pipe around and down close to the sway bar and then back up to a phalange. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, a couple days went by. I've skipped way ahead. Mostly all you've missed is the wiring and putting the intake on, the belt, water pump, getting the fuel system lined up. It doesn't look good, but it's there, it works. Getting the vacuum lines hooked up from the intake to this manifold, then this manifold to the map sensor, and also a line going to a boost gauge inside the car. Right now I'm working on the front end because I got the car started, it runs. Let me show you the mess that I've got going on. I'm not done with the wiring, so judge me all you want, I don't care. A few years ago I bought a box from Current Performance. They work. I think they're a little pricey, but they work. You can do this way cheaper. And can you see it? And this time I went ahead and screwed the computer and the fuse block up underneath the car. That is not a street sign. Don't pay no attention to that. This wiring is just a mess. Finally put a bolt in here to put all my hot wires to. So I've got the alternator wire running into this. I've got a wire from this going to the starter. I've got the battery cable going up to the starter. And this time, just to make things easier, I put my OBD2 port on the side of the shifter. Make it a little easier to get a hold of. I wired up what I had to get the thing to run. There's a few other things, like I got some wires here on a wing nut. That ain't gonna work. And I've got a lot of mess to clean up. But it runs. And I'll start it before I leave here today to show you all that it runs, but it just runs. So I've got so excited about it running that I've skipped right ahead to the turbo setup. So my idea, what I really want to do, because I tried it yesterday, was I want to put the turbo up front right behind the grill. And the only way that I can get around doing that with using the LT1 radiator and fans is to tilt the radiator back like it actually is in the Camaro. So I found this 1x2" piece of tubing, and then I just bolted it to the radiator support and used a crescent wrench and bent it backwards, tilted it where I wanted it. I got to cut just a little bit off of this left side on the radiator support, and it should bolt in. Then I got to figure out what to do about the top, about holding the top of the radiator down, but that'll come to me later on. I might try to do this upside down truck manifold nonsense and actually run the exhaust pipes over the radiator. I don't know how I feel about that yet, but we'll just get to it and see what it looks like. Alright, what do you think? Think it'll work? I want to route the exhaust straight back through here and to the existing hole. Is that a paper towel? To the existing hole that I have in the fender already. The transmission cooler, I thought about mounting to the firewall back here. I'm not real sure on that yet. I might try to mount it somewhere. I don't know. It's got a fan on it. I can mount it anywhere I want, I guess. I don't think the flange of the turbo is going to have to be caulked because I want the exhaust to come down into it. And then the drain, I have to have the turbo up high enough to where I have a good drain coming out of the turbo. I don't think that's going to be an issue either. I hope not. I think it'll be okay. You know, I can notch more of this out right here and make sure a drain line can get through there, and it goes down to the oil pan, either on this side or the other side. I guess it doesn't matter which, but I figured this side would be the simplest solution. I like it. I may move it over a little bit or something. And then the cold side piping, I want it to just go straight up over the radiator and right into the intake. I'd like to put an intercooler on it sometime. Maybe I can figure out a way to get a hold of a air to water cooler, or I've got some intercoolers, but they don't support a lot of horsepower, so I don't know. I might try to plumb them, but they take up a lot of space, and they're two separate coolers off of an F body. I don't think they're going to work. All right, real quick here. End of the day, I've got to leave. I've got some truck manifolds flipped upside down. The idea is to bring a pipe directly over top of the radiator into the turbo on both sides. I still haven't moved the turbo over to see if I can line it up better with the exhaust going that way. The inside looks a little better. I need to take a sweeper to it. I haven't finished the wiring yet, just because I don't know what I'm doing with the fans set up yet. I don't know if I'll be running nitrous this year at all. I don't know if I'll be using the meth injection either. I'm going to be running E85, and I don't know. There's a lot going on there with tuning it with meth. And anyhow, yeah. So okay, that's what I've got accomplished. And if any of you have any recommendations on what to do with the plug wires, with the manifolds flipped upside down, the plug wires are going to touch the exhaust manifold. And I thought about doing the DEI plug wire heat shield protectors or whatever, but those are going to be rubbing or touching the exhaust manifold too, so I don't know how hot that plug wire is going to get. I can do a like a Chevy truck or a Chevy Caprice plug wire set. I don't know. I'll see what the internet has to say first, I guess, before I go any further, because obviously 4 million people have already done this, so I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. So if any of you have any ideas, let me know. Thanks.